Welcome to the very first installment of the Good Food Community. We think this is a podcast. Who knows? We're not sure where this is going to go, but really, at the heart of this is a bunch of girls who care about food that is good at its core. Very simple. And we've chosen the Good Food Community. The good food really, the background between that name choice is really that we are interested in food that is regeneratively and organically produced. And if you are focusing on food that is beautifully produced, then the repercussions are positive beyond that. So it's good for your body, good for the environment. We're really passionate about it, and the community part of this group name is really important too, because I don't think that the things that we are wanting to see and come to fruition are possible without community. So we're all about you are what you eat, you are what you eat. Eight. And there's no better way, in my opinion, to start this off than by just talking amongst ourselves. You guys are soil health experts, and to me, I feel like most of the world's problems can be solved in the soil. It's a very bold claim, I know, but we wanted to just kick off this exciting venture that we're on by just sharing our stories as to how we got here, like how is it that you are in the soil health realm or niche, whatever you want to call it. Why am I in this? What's our why behind this? I think that's really important, because this is mostly, I'm going to say, it's probably for all of us mostly a philanthropic endeavor, where we're here to share information, we're here to grow and educate. And I think a lot of what we want to see is being able to educate and share with the consumer, because I think we are all in agreement that the consumer is the thing that's going to precipitate the changes that we want to see. Yeah. So we're wanting consumers to be able to vote with their fork, or, vote with their wallet when it comes to food particularly, and that is going to facilitate the changes that we want to see in the way food is produced and how it affects us and our health and the environment. So I'll just jump in and go first, because I'm yapping away already. So my name is Katie Wisdom. I'm a photographer mostly. I guess at its core, I'm an entrepreneur. I started to care about food when my mum was diagnosed with cancer in 2016. Until that point, I hadn't really had a clue how important food is. I mean, you obviously have a good idea of what's healthy and what's not healthy, but it was not uncommon for me to have a bar one or brownie for lunch and think nothing of it. I had no idea just how much food comes into, basically you are what you eat. And when my mum was diagnosed with cancer, my immediate response was, like, what can I do? Like, what is there in this that I can control? Because there's so much that doesn't seem to be in your control when there's a cancer diagnosis, whether it's your own diagnosis or someone else's. And that really sparked the journey into discovering, what I could do, certainly on the natural side, to support my mum. And then that led me into a deeper journey into food. And then, one thing led to another. And it was, I guess, inflammatory documentary after inflammatory documentary, like Cowspiracy and various other great Netflix and various other productions that kind of began to grow this awareness. And then since having children, I've had to, sort of apply the principles of how food interacts with our bodies in my own children. And so it's an ongoing discovery. And I'm just so excited to collaborate with you guys, because I really do think that as a base, like when you begin to look into these things, if you don't address the soil health, I feel like everything just falls off the rails from there. And so that's a sort of brief background. There's other things that I'm sure will come into it, but that's the heart behind it, really, is being able to talk to people who are doing it right, and to be able to share those stories and edify those stories, and share with the world. So I'm going to hand over to who wants to go next.
I think Rob's, you go, Rob's, because I've,
You're still eating that?
yeah, thanks.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So my name is Robin Olsen, and I don't come from a farming background at all. When I was in school, I didn't give much thought to where my food came from. I always just assumed that it would be at Pick and Pay or Spar, you know. Mom would go there every day and get us something for dinner, and that's about as much thought as I gave it. A farmer for me back then was uh, probably a South African stereotypical one, you know, an old Afrikaans man and a khaki
Old
two-piece with
spinner.
long socks. Yeah, bellies on. Um, so yeah, I'm ashamed to say that's as much thought as I gave it. And then after I matriculated, it wasn't long till I moved in with my boyfriend, much to my parents' dismay. Um, and he actually got a job on a beef farm in the Free State. And so we moved to the Free State. And for the first time in my life, I was exposed to this thing called agriculture. And I was exposed to farmers and farm life. And I learned that these people are tough as nails. They are from all races and all cultures. And they are people who have a deep love for, for their land and for their animals. And so I fell in love with that lifestyle. And I was so disappointed in myself with the fact that I'd never given this much thought. And I wanted to make it my life's work to connect the dots between farmers and consumers. Because, you know, generally the things we don't understand, or generally the things we're not part of, we don't understand. And I really wanted to set out to educate people, especially in South Africa, on where their food is coming from. So I had this fire in my belly. I was young, probably like 20 years old. Um, and then fast forward a few years and life happens and you lose sight of this dream. Um, I had recently graduated and I knew that I wanted to be in agriculture, but I also was passionate about human health. Um, and it was actually at this time that a farmer that I really admired approached me and he told me about Elaine Ingham's Soil Food Web course, which I'd never heard anything about before. And I looked into it and it just immediately clicked. So the way that I see it is that the soil is like the planet's gut microbiome. And Kate, you
Mm.
touched on this. If our guts are not functioning optimally, then we're not healthy. And it's exactly the same with the soil. So, yes, the soil is certainly the key to restoring a lot of things in this world and restoring human health. So, I did the Soil Food Web course, and I it was actually last year. So, just a year ago, I left my corporate job and I started my own business. I started Elite for Soil Health. And, you know, I think there's a very big lesson in this because I had forgotten that person who had that fire in their belly in the beginning, thinking, oh my word, I need to change things. We need to connect consumer and farmer and we need to make a difference, you know? And I only realized just the other day that look at where I am now with you guys. And we've just created this good food community, setting out to do exactly the thing that I wanted to do 10 years ago. So, you know, we so often beat ourselves up about things taking time and not getting anywhere when we need to sometimes just take a step back and see how far we've actually come. So I'm
Mm.
so thankful to you guys, Nat and Katie, for joining forces and for doing this. And we need to remember that some of the strongest communities exist within farming communities. And,
Mm.
and consumers need to be a part of that community. So yeah, thank you guys. That's my story.
I'm gonna cry. No, it's
Yeah.
great.
The feels are really
before. It's really cool. Like it's really special and meaningful.
Thank
That's yeah, I can't believe it started so young, like in your young before 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. I just wanted to quickly touch on something, Robs, that you mentioned that I resonated with everything you said, but particularly the disconnect between where our food comes from and how we consume our food. And I think that's a big one. You know, we're not necessarily saying like you should go and start a garden and grow all the things, because if you're a busy person and you've got a hectic life, like that's possibly unsustainable. But it's being able to know how your food is produced and who is producing it, what is their take on the way that they're farming, and how they are having an environmental impact. And
Yes.
and then choosing to find these people who are close to you, who care about the same things as you. So if this is something you care about, in terms of where your food comes from, then start being proactive and finding people close to you who are doing it right. And I think that's a big purpose here with what we're doing, is connecting the dots, like you say, like connecting the dots between like the guy who's farming in a very regenerative multi-species way, and connecting with the person who actually cares about what they're consuming. And that that could be anywhere in South Africa. And we just were really hoping that we can become a source of good information, like not inflammatory information. We're not trying to be carte blanche and call people out and point fingers. We're trying to bring light to the stories that are already successful, in our opinion, in that they care about what they're doing. They're caring about the way that they're farming. They care that it's organic, that it's having a good positive impact on their ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Over to you, Nats.
I think that's where I think it's going to take a lot of us, a lot of listening for us, because everybody cares about something different. I mean, if you ask the three of us, obviously we care about the environment, but not everybody in their busy paced lives can, I mean, besides recycling and, go out of their ways, and especially within an urban city setting. So there are ways to do it, but I think, don't think today's lifestyle caters too much for actually just surviving, having your job, having your family, and that's about as much as you can possibly juggle. But I know that care kind of stems or leads you in your decision making. And if environmentalism or taking care of the environment is something that's not, I mean, everybody cares about the environment because we live in it, but also caring about your own health, but understanding, maybe you don't even know the kind of contexts that food is grown in, to understand, because if you care about your health, which we do, it'll be meaningful to you to make a change from where you're buying your food from and looking behind the shelf. And so just to shortcut the story, so mine started kind of after high school, going into university, getting my first like waitering job, and having spending money. And I loved to go to restaurants and just dine. Like, it was quite a fine thing. Like, I really thought I was a foodie, and I really do love really good food. But like going to those where you get like a morsel on your plate, but you pay like 500 bucks, those kinds of things. I used to spend too much time on that kind of stuff. But one day I went to a restaurant in Cape Town, and it was very simple food, like farm food. And the carrot, for me, it's a carrot. It was just so, not just sweet. It was, if you could taste golden and depth, not umami, but like very whole flavor. And I don't know how to describe that, but I was like, wow, this is incredible. And if this is what you can get from growing food, then I'm going to try and do that. And I've always been into gardening and growing. I started with my house plants, like a plant mom, and then I came back from the holiday and I took it out into the balcony, and I said to Paulie, my husband, I said, I'm going to grow us all the food, and we're never going to have to buy from Woolies ever again. And so it was cool because like I did a lot of, I did a lot of failed attempts, and then that's when I kind of got into the composting. And on Instagram there was this guy who he said, like, if you into growing your own food and looking after soil, these are the certain books that you can read. And one of them was Teeming with Microbes by Jeff Lowenthal. And in that book, so then I bought it, and in that book they mentioned the Soul Food Web, Elaine Ingham. But so then I said to Paulie, like, how is this relevant? Because we're in banking, and are we ever going to use this? I mean, great. But he said, well, one day we do want to have a farm. So even if you just use it on our own farm, that'll be great. So we didn't even have a farm. We lived in an apartment. So then we had a firstborn and then secondborn. And when we had our secondborn, Luca, he was 6 weeks old. It was during COVID. And then our nanny had passed away and from COVID. And then we were just like not doing so well. We were battling a little bit, exhaustion, and Paul was still working, and paternity leave wasn't 2 weeks at that point, but even 2 weeks is nothing. But anyway, so Paul said, let's go to Durbs, because his family's Portuguese. My mom will cook for us, she'll feed us, she'll look after us. And so, yeah, that's how we ended up in Durbs. And then when Nedbank called us back, he said, why don't we ask for a transfer? Because, it's so great here on the coast, and the lifestyle is more balanced, it's more family oriented, is the outdoors. And so we both asked for a transfer, and Paulie got his, and I didn't get mine. But by this time, I'd already qualified as a lab tech. And so he said, well, let's go for it. You've already been networking, and you've already got, you're already a small part of the community. Why don't you just see how far you can take it? So then my goal was to start up a composting operation. And then I founded Convert the Dirt, and I found by mistake, I found a farmer. It was like amazing, because I was trying to contact somebody on the coast, a sugarcane farmer. Ended up with the wrong contact, but actually that was the guy that I'm ending up composting with. And because I pitched up there, and I saw because he's a surfer, and I looked at this person and I was like, I'm looking for the farmer. Also, Rob's like your stereotype. I was like, I'm looking for the farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the farmer. It's like, okay, but that's now my the collaboration where we are making our compost. And ever since then, I've been consulting other operations, especially with food waste management. And this is where this idea to talk to people and share people's stories is important, because I occasionally get calls from different sources of waste, whether it's garden waste or food waste, or you must see the list of stuff that goes in industrial waste. And I got a call once from a waste management company asking me if I had a site available for them to take some waste to. And the list was, it was food waste, it was rancid rice, fat trap, brewery sludge. And I didn't have a site. And 2 weeks later, I called the lady and I said, listen, I do actually have a site that is available now. And she said, no, well, don't worry about it. It's been sorted. So in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Does it mean it's in the river? Is it in the ocean? And she said, no, it's animal feed. And so I was like, okay. And I can understand how grains can be animal feed. That's pretty, normal. That would be, within my expectations. But the fat trap and the brewery sludge, I was alarmed at which animals would be fed that, and whether it was appropriate for them. And then I got to thinking, like, the next time I buy some meat, whatever meat it is, which shop is that popping up in? And that's when I was like, whoa, I don't want to be buying that kind of meat, and nobody else should be buying that kind of meat. That's not appropriate for their diets. So yeah, that's really what I want to talk about, and especially finding places where we know the people who are growing really good quality beef and chicken and butter and even like skin products, but that we know what's happening in behind the scenes and we trust. And it's really just about relationships and finding out. And once you Google and whatever, it's there to be found. And that's really what I want people to have access to, because I find, you know, like our health is the most important thing, in terms of especially financial, but we outsource it to people we don't even know. So isn't that so strange? Like it's very just normal to go to a massive place where we don't know how they took care of it, what they sprayed on it, how they treated the animal. We totally outsource that. But when we go to doing health insurance, we take a jog, and that's something that we look into carefully and we scrutinize that stuff. So how come we don't scrutinize to an equal measure where our food is coming from? But it's just because it's so normal. I mean, like you said, Robs, the first thing, I also didn't think much when I was younger. It's part of our lives. So so that's how I got, and I'm also really glad to be part of you guys, your team. Yeah.
I have some things to sort of raise that you've sparked just from what you've been saying. It's going back a little bit, but just it comes into it, you'll see why. So I remember going to Enyileni. Did you ever go to Enyileni farm? I forget his name now, Richard Haig, that's it. Yes, Richard Haig, yeah. And he's no longer, but basically, he was very much farming in a regenerative way. So he had a very diverse ecosystem with the way that he farmed. You guys have probably got better terminology for this, but I went for a visit multiple times, but the one particular time was a more private visit with just 2 other people. And he made us lunch from his garden. So we went out together, it seems so kind of bougie, right? And so fancy to go out into your garden and pick things, So I think we had cauliflower at the time, there were some peas, and we all did our bit in the kitchen to prepare this meal together. And I mean, that's a lovely experience. But what I distinctly remember from this experience was that I was so full. And it was just veg and like a little bit of, I think he had some goats. And so there was a bit of goat cheese in the mix. I was full for the whole day. Yeah. And that comes down to the nutrient density. So not only are you eating food that has far more in terms of, like it hasn't had pesticides or any, nasty stuff sprayed on it.
Yeah.
But because it's so nutrient dense, because it came straight from the source to our plate, like the time between it being picked and actually being consumed was short, and therefore the nutrient density was at optimal level. Like I don't think it even had 5 seconds to lose any nutrient density, and therefore I was more sustained for the rest of the day. So that's something I wanted to talk about, and also just raise the kind of this kind of uncomfortable factor that when you have food that is produced in this high quality premium way, there's a cost factor that in the masses, when you're talking on at a mass scale, like how do we address this? This I guess I want to call it an elephant in the room. It seems like a very privileged thing to be able to consume food that is good for you, that is good on the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Everyone should have access to it.
Yeah. I mean, I watched a YouTube thing the other day where the guy was saying, and this talks to how you were full for so long, because it takes, I think he said it takes 9 minerals to grow the form. Say, just go back to the carrot, to grow the form of a carrot, that actual structure, 9 minerals. But for it to be nutrient dense and tasty, it takes 60 to 80 minerals, and that just comes from your soil. So if you if your soil is depleted, yeah, you can grow that structure, but you're eating empty food. And so that comes, there's this thing talking about hidden hunger, where people are consuming biomass or quantity, but the quality is lower. Yeah. And so, yeah, that fullness feeling I've also had that. I went to a vegan restaurant once, actually, and I was full the whole day. But it was very satisfying. And to be honest, we shouldn't actually, I don't know if this is, should we need to eat 3 times a day? I don't know. I don't feel like that would be very busy hunter-gatherers. We'd be hunting and gathering like double the day for one day's food. It's very, anyway, so just, yeah, very random.
Precisely. Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole that I'll leave now. But what there's something very specific that I want to ask you guys as soil health experts. Like, can you just go into how much time we got left? Okay, we'll make it a quick 7-minute rant. But like, why the soil? Like, why are we focusing on soil? Like, what is the difference between like dirt and soil? Like, why are you guys so heavily focused on the soil? Like, just, I mean, I know, but give me a sort of, a short, maybe 5-sentence ramble.
For growers, I think the first thing that's going to mean anything to them is financial. That's what everybody's guided by. So if you can build your system, it's a different system. John Kempf recently said it's like going from Windows to Apple. You can't just throw cover crops into a Mac that will work in Apple. Like, pretend that Windows is conventional and Apple is regenerative. You can't do within your Windows system, you cannot do small tweaks and expect it to work, because your whole system needs to change. But if you, and we're not, when I talk to people, I'm not trying to ask them to convert everything at the same time. It's too risky. It's too financially risky. But to try small experiments, be it 1/4 hectare, be it 1/2 hectare, whatever is palatable from a financial perspective, to see that if they did different practices on that little section, which is all aimed at improving soil health, improving water retention, decreasing your need for inputs on that, like purchased inputs on that section. And it's an environmental, the whole thing is environmental, but isn't it great that the offset is healthier food? So that's kind of like, if somebody's open or curious, then that's the start of something cool, because then they're a little bit open. And never to put pressure, and it's kind of like a religion, people are doing what they've been doing, what they learn from their families been doing it, and to come in and say something different, I can understand how it can be difficult to change, but you just start somewhere small, and this is also why it's important to listen, is because maybe you find a place where they can start, whereas if you just go in and you say XYZ, that's not really finding out the context of something that would be appropriate or suitable for them. So it's definitely finding out what's suitable and manageable also, because I mean, like, what I've realized is farmers are not just the farmer, they're the engineer, they're the computer guy, like they're the most skilled, multifaceted, ability people. So they've got so much to deal with on a daily basis. There's always something going wrong. And so if you come in there, you've really got to do something that's helpful and not another challenge.
Very special.
Yeah. And you got to find what speaks to them. It's so complex, and my heart really goes out to farmers, because, you get different groups. Like, you get the one group who won't change, they're making money, they're doing well, why would they need to change? They're not going to listen to you. And then you get the group that really cares and they really want to change, but they have this massive financial burden and they are too scared to make any changes because they cannot take the risk. Debt is a massive, massive problem in agriculture. And then you get the group that they almost lose everything and then they change, because they think, well, this is the turning point, I have to do something. And then there's also another group that sees what they need to do. And I find this is generally the younger group of farmers. And the people that didn't really start out as farmers, they tend to have this mindset where they want to do better and they're taking steps and they're moving forward. It's incredibly complex because you're dealing with psychology at the end of the day. You know, you're dealing with people. It's difficult, it's emotional. And I think coming back to your question, Katie, why the soil? Everything on a farm stems from soil. Whether you're a crop farmer, whether you're a beef farmer, whether you do chickens, it's all you are drawing from the soil. The health of your animals, the health of your plants, that all depends on the health of your soil, right?
Yeah.
It's the foundation for everything. And this is where we really need to educate farmers. It's the health of your soil isn't going to come from a bottle. You know, we need to go backwards to move forwards.
And
So it's so complex.
And I think this is why we need to start with the consumers too, because if the consumer starts to ask for stuff, then the guys who are pretty comfortable, maybe then they'll be more likely to say, well, the market is going this way. I need to make a plan to keep my portion of the market, whatever it be. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Guys, this has been amazing. Such a great start to this journey. I can't wait to see where it's going to go. So we're in the planning process of talking to other people. So people who are actually practicing the things that we are talking about, farmers, food producers. So you'll want to catch the next chats with us. So we'll be releasing some more information on that soon. But for now, thank you for joining us, and and watch out for the next installments.
Cool.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll cap it there.